Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Two, I think, fascinating storylines for the Miami Hurricanes as they go into the offseason, getting ready for 2025. Those two storylines are who's going to be the defensive coordinator in the 2025 year and who's going to be starting at quarterback for Miami in 2025. Now, I want to spend most of our time talking about the quarterback options for the Miami Hurricanes. We're going to talk about true freshman Luke Nickel. We're going to talk about some of the other quarterbacks that are on this roster. And we're also going to talk about a few transfer portal options as well. We're not going to go daydreaming. If Quinn Ewers hits the transfer portal after the college football playoffs, we'll talk about it when that happens. But I think it's more important right now to focus on, hey, what's in front of Miami currently? And if that picture changes, y'all know dang well we're going to be talking about it. Now, on the defensive coordinator front, I want to give my quick take on it. And that is, I wouldn't be surprised if the defensive coordinator target that Mario Cristobal has his eyes on is currently coaching in the NFL. I believe that for two different reasons. One, it's been radio silent in terms of candidates that are emerging for Miami, which tells me, hey, maybe the coach Miami's looking for is still coaching right now. And obviously the NFL regular season just winded down. The playoffs are just starting. Would not be surprised if that's the case. And I think why might that be the case? Look at the track record of NFL coaches moving down to the collegiate ranks on the defensive side of the football. It's been money in the college football landscape. You look at what Michigan's done. The last three defensive coordinators were NFL guys making the move down to college. Every single one of them has been elite for Michigan. You look at Steve Belichick last year with the Washington Huskies, moving down from the Patriots to Washington, did a really good job with the Huskies defense, had one of the best secondaries that we saw in the country. Look at Danton Lynn at UCLA and now at USC. Another guy that was in the NFL, comes down to the collegiate ranks, does a really good job. I would be very surprised if Mario Cristobal has not seen that trend and said, hey, the coaches at the NFL ranks that have moved down to the collegiate ranks are having a lot of success. Maybe that's the route we want to go to. And from the combination of one, the proven track record of NFL coaches having a lot of success down in college, and the fact that we just haven't really heard much, tells me that might be the case. That's my quick take. And again, I want to make it very clear. No insider information. I'm in the same boat as many of y'all. I'm just refreshing the message boards. I'm refreshing Twitter, looking for any single rumor that we can find. And I'll say this, Miami, if their goal is to make this a tight-lipped process, they're doing a damn good job of it because there is nothing coming out in terms of defensive coordinator candidates. Now, I want to get more into the quarterback position. I'm going to try to keep it a 3-minute elevator pitch on Luke Nickel and why he could potentially be the guy for Miami in 2025. We're also going to talk about a few other quarterbacks that intrigue me for a couple of different reasons that are currently in the portal. Before we get into it, as always, to the Miami Hurricane fans, let it rip in the comment section, especially as it pertains to Luke Nickel. Because I know this is a hot take. This is a polarizing take. And I know a lot of Miami Hurricane fans feel all sorts of different ways about it. And that's kind of the beauty of having this discussion. I would love to hear from the Miami Hurricane fans in the comment section. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Going to be a really fun next couple of weeks to talk this Miami Hurricanes football team. Without further ado, let's get into it now. Luke Nickel, what are the two things that I look at with Luke Nickel and say, hey, that inspires confidence that he could potentially be the guy in 2025? Let's start with just how much football this kid has played in a really high classification up there in the state of Georgia. I mean, that's 7A football. It doesn't really get much better across the country. He's played a lot of football at a very, very high level in the state of Georgia. Why is that different from if you were to grab a quarterback up where I'm from in Rochester, New York? Look, the speed of the game, the caliber of players around you, it's just different in the state of Georgia than it is in upstate New York. And so I look at Luke Nickel and say that the biggest thing that quarterbacks have to adjust to when they get to the college football level is the speed of the game. Look, Luke Nickel has the traits, 6'2", 200 plus, big time arm, extremely accurate passer. I mean, from a physical trait standpoint, Luke Nickel has the ability to step on the football field day one and have success. I think the question mark is what's between the ears. And from playing 3 straight seasons 7A football up there in the state of Georgia. To me, that inspires a lot of confidence. It's different. It's going to take him less time to adjust to the speed of the game coming from Georgia than it is if you were to come from Western New York where he's playing a bunch of me's out there. That's just a fact. Now, I think secondly, what I love about him, extremely productive, over 10,000 passing yards the last 3 years, 107 touchdowns to 20 interceptions. Takes care of the football. Most of those, almost a half of those interceptions came from his sophomore year when he threw 8. And he's taking care of the football in a big time way, which is something that when you're looking at freshmen, that's a concern. Lastly, this kid's a winner. I mean, just went 15-0, pretty much ran right through the competition in the state of Georgia, 7A football, and won a state title. Back-to-back state titles. Won a state title as a junior too. I look for winners at the high school ranks. That's one of the most important things that you can talk about when you're talking quarterbacks. Do they win football games? Do they show up when the moment is the biggest? Luke Nickel's been that guy. Look, there to me are a lot of reasons that Luke Nickel would inspire confidence at being a day one guy. And I think lastly, and just be frank about it, the college football sport is different than it was 10 years ago. 10 years ago, it's almost unheard of seeing guys play as true freshmen, not just at the quarterback position, but pretty much everywhere. I mean, these kids coming out of high school are they're more ready than they were 10 years ago. We just saw a ton of true freshmen have we're still seeing. I mean, what Jeremiah Smith's doing at Ohio State, I know that's a sore spot for Miami fans, but you're seeing these 18-year-old kids come out of high school and they're just more ready, more developed to play early in college. Wouldn't be surprised if Luke Nickel could be that guy. Now, the conversation is, do you want to put all your eggs in one basket in terms of Luke Nickel or Emory Williams being the guy? That's probably the conversation. I think the answer is no. And that does not have anything to do with my lack of confidence in Luke Nickel, and it's more just the concept I believe in, that is you don't want to force this kid to have to play if he's not ready. So do you go out and get a transfer portal quarterback that's a little bit more of a proven commodity that could play and win you a lot of football games? That's the question. And let's be frank about it. Outside of a guy like John Mateer, I don't even know if John Mateer's that guy. There's no Cam Ward. There's no guy that you can come in and immediately be like a Heisman caliber quarterback that you can win 10 plus games with, obviously. Now, a name that I think is interesting, and I know I might get some pushback early, Matt Luca. Why is Matt Luca interesting to me for Miami? Look, it's really easy to look at his stats at UNLV, which he only played 3 games, 43% completion percentage, and be like, that's not a good college football quarterback. And I'm not necessarily getting up and arguing that Matt Luca is amazing. The 43% completion percentage, there needs to be an asterisk next to that, because you look at that and say his average depth of target was 14 yards down the field. That's a kind of funky UNLV offense that one wants to run the football, and that's one of the biggest assets Matt Luca has. But number two, when they throw the football, they're just throwing it vertically down the field. They're taking shots. And so you're never going to have a high completion percentage when you're playing for that UNLV offense in 2024. Why I think Matt Luca is interesting is because of what he can do as an athlete, as a runner of the football. Where is Miami's strength going to be on the offensive side of the football? It's going to be the run game. Jordan Lyle and Mark Fletcher, very, very good offensive line. Miami is going to run the heck out of the football, regardless of who their quarterback is in 2025. Matt Luca is one of the better running quarterbacks that you see in college football. I mean, what he did at Holy Cross was incredible. You saw the athleticism translate to his time at UNLV, although it was short. If Miami wants to take that kind of identity on in the 2025 year, Matt Luca could be an answer. Now, is that what Shannon Dawson wants to do? Is Matt Luca a great fit in the Shannon Dawson offense? That's probably the knock on him, is I don't look at Matt Luca and say, yeah, that's a Shannon Dawson kind of guy. He's not a guy that just sprays it all around the football field. But I do think in terms of the identity that we could see Miami take on, could be a quarterback that could win you a lot of football games. And again, it's not going to look like it did with Cam Ward last year, but I do think it could be maybe effective. Number 2, Devin Brown. And why I mentioned Devin Brown is, one, he's kind of an unknown commodity, but he's a guy that, one, was linked to Cal and still is linked to Cal. Well, guess what? Cal just got that 5-star quarterback from Oregon. And so now Devin Brown's probably looking there. Devin Brown wants to play. This is his last year of eligibility. He wants to play. Now Cal might be off the table. I look at Devin Brown and say, okay, we don't exactly know what he is because he hasn't played, but I'm also looking at it and say, all right, he lost a tightly contested position battle to Kyle McCord, who we just saw Kyle McCord at Syracuse. Kyle McCord's a really good quarterback. And then he loses another quarterback battle to Will Howard. One, I give the kid a ton of credit for just staying at Ohio State and battling it out. Lost quarterback battles to two good quarterbacks. This was a kid that was a top 50 national prospect coming out of high school. There are a lot of intriguing traits that Devin Brown brings to the table. So although he doesn't check that proven commodity box, because we haven't seen him really as a starting quarterback all that much, I do think that's a quarterback that's been around the sport a lot, has been in an Ohio State quarterback room that is known for developing quarterbacks. He could be one of those guys that, yes, we don't necessarily know what he is, but if he gets an opportunity to start, could be pretty damn good. I mean, on three, when he was coming out of high school, Devin Brown was the number one prospect in the country, the number one quarterback for on three. So I think that that's an intriguing conversation. I think lastly, and this is a name that just popped in, Chandler Rogers from Cal. Really good season in 2023 at North Texas. 62% completion percentage, 3,300 yards, 29 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Really good athlete too. And so again, I think Miami might be looking for a quarterback that can be dynamic as a runner. Luca, Chandler Rogers, they bring that to you. Now, I don't think Chandler Rogers is quite the athlete that Luca is, but he's probably a better passer of the football, and you probably get a little bit more balance. I would be surprised if, because, Luca's been in the portal for a while, and Miami hasn't shown interest. So I'd be surprised if it's Luca. Devin Brown has been in the portal too. Chandler Rogers just got in. To me, I'd be surprised if Miami goes out and gets any of these guys. I truly do think Mario Cristobal is waiting for a big quarterback to pop, and I think he'd probably know if there's going to be a quarterback that pops. So I think you're waiting patiently. You know that you kind of have a war chest ready because they made a very aggressive offer to John Mateer that obviously didn't work out. And so that quarterback money sitting there for Miami. And I get the sense that they're waiting for a quarterback to hit. Now, does that quarterback hit's probably the question. I see some Miami Hurricane fans talking about getting one after the spring practice window and maybe a good quarterback pops then. I don't love that idea because I want my starting quarterback to be with the team in spring because I think that's a really, really important time for a transfer portal quarterback to get involved in the offense. We'll see. I think there's obviously a couple of different ways Miami could go. It's very hard to get a feel for what Miami wants to do. We'll obviously continue to cover it as the storylines come out, but wanted to hop on and, kind of give my 2 cents in terms of the options Miami has at the quarterback spot. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. Let it fly in the comment section. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later.